Yeah, no. So this is the first podcast that I've done.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done others before. So I was at a few years ago. I was at the Institute for American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I went there for cinematography and film,
Okay.
and that was when I did my first podcast or interview. It was more of an interview. And I remember it was like an hour long. It was with the finance administrator,
Mm-hmm.
and after our interview, it was like really great. And I remember being in the midst of it and having a super in-depth conversation. And I went to turn it off, and I realized that I didn't even press the record button. So like my first interview ever was just like complete kaput, you know?
Dry run.
Yeah. And it was just like I thought it was like the most awesome interview ever.
Right,
you know?
right. No, it's just, oh well.
It was like a whole hour, just gone. But yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, like, I guess, what brought you back to the podcast idea and all that?
Out of this summer, like at the end of the season, I felt called to get into the more creative side of things again, in terms of creating something new, like out of myself, for myself, but for other people, and something that has substance behind it. I never knew what I wanted to create, or I didn't feel like I had any passion and purpose or drive or like substance to create with. But after being out on the farm and experiencing food, agriculture, and living and working so close with nature, something I wanted to do my entire life,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, well now I can create from that. Because that's like where my heart is at.
Right.
My mind always wanted to create, but I feel like now I found where my heart is at. We can go from there.
Heck yeah.
It's like align the two.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of almost
So-
like finding where your values lie and what you do and having them align and be able to create something with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
So.
Nice.
And also, yeah. So we lived in Fargo Moorhead,
Yes.
and yeah. So maybe we can begin there. So I met you this summer at the farm,
Correct. Yes.
and you were doing a FARRMS internship.
I was. I signed up for FARRMS Internship. Being in the culinary business and being so close to food for the last 20 plus years of my life, professionally, and then not only that, but my family was very food centric. I grew up in a house where meals were very important, and what we created was kind of passed down from generation to generation. So food had a special meaning for me. But it wasn't until I read Dan Barber's The Third Plate, and it was almost like a kind of a, I don't know, punch to the gut in a sense, where like it had me thinking about things that I never thought about before, and it made me think like, why? And holy smokes, because here I am, I made a life and a profession out of cooking with food, but only experiencing food on the back end, like the very last part of the whole food process, right before it goes into our mouths and then we excrete it, kind of a thing. But yeah, so like reading that Dan Barber and being exposed to the bigger picture, like where our food is coming from, how it's being produced, how many hands it touches before it gets to your plate. And then not only that, but just kind of like where the control of that production is, and where it was quite eye-opening, because it didn't seem like that was in the hands of like us regular people anymore. So yeah, that kind of lit a fire under me, where I was like, I want to. I felt like as someone in the culinary industry, I don't really like to use the term chef. I think it's overused. I prefer cook myself. But being a cook and then having that realization that I was so cut off from the actual food that I was preparing, and didn't really know much about how it got there or what it takes to get there or anything like that. It was a wake-up call for me. So I decided to put myself out there and find a way for me to get closer to that beginning process of the food industry. And so that led me to FARRMS, which was pretty cool because all I had to do is sign up, and those lovely people with FARRMS do all the legwork and get the grants needed to, give us a little bit of extra money, and then the farmers as well to help. And then I get to learn all these new neat things about food and what it takes to produce it.
Right.
And how it gets to our plates.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. It was really mind blowing and very what's the word I'm looking for? Humbling. Being in the culinary industry for like 20 years, you kind of get this or at least I got kind of overconfident with my knowledge of food and things like that, because obviously I gained knowledge with the food I was using, but only to a certain extent, and it was just kind of like, oh yeah, I really don't know as much as I think I know.
Yeah.
About the process. So yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, there's so much that we don't know.
Yeah.
I learn every single day. All these. Dan Barber is a wonderful person who I started looking into this summer as well.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read much of Michael Pollan's work yet, but he has a few books out there.
Yep, the Omnivore's, what is it?
Omnivore's Dilemma.
Dilemma, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, every single day it's just uncovering something new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's crazy to think that these things were, I don't know if they were hidden from us on purpose or what, but sometimes I feel like they were, but then also it's thinking about just, we unfortunately are the products of our environment and what information we are given. And if we're not given all the information right away or correct information, then it's not really our fault, is it?
No. No.
And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to realize is, and to be kind to ourselves. We didn't know.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Now we do, and now we can change things, or we can get more involved.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and so being humble with ourselves about where did we grow up and what has our story been, especially in relation to food systems, and what we consume. For sure. I think one thing I've been thinking about is how we can use that as motivation for creating change. I think that's where all motivation comes from. But okay, so I grew up very unaware of our food system, eating stuff that shouldn't even be in the human body, and doing all these things for so much of my life. Okay, so, I made some changes. I had a few punches in the gut myself in terms of holy crap, what am I doing here?
Right.
And what is society doing here? And what are we doing here? And so, and then we find ourselves here where, for me, the punch in the gut was switching my diet to a plant-based diet around the age of 19. And then suddenly I had this, the energy of the sun in my body. I was like, holy crap, I have so much energy and I can do so much and I don't have to feel like crap. That's how it was for me. It was a very tactile, punch in the gut. I was like, whoa. And then you just and then I started shopping at Whole Foods, co-ops, searching for local foods, farmers markets, and then I end up here working on a farm. Mm-hmm. And so it's now how can I reverse that and go backwards, but sharing that process with other people. And then we can get back to the roots and I don't know, make something from there. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I'm coming to realize in the food when we talk about our relationship with the food and the land. Mm-hmm. and because it's connected to everything that we do, right? Like you said earlier, you grew up in a place where food was central.
Yeah, it was what brought us together, and it's how I shared time with my grandparents, like my grandma on my mom's side. For years and years and decades, we did lefse together every winter. That was kind of our thing, and now that she's passed away, like I still carry on that tradition, and I hope to share that, and I've been sharing that tradition with my nieces and nephews so that they can learn to do that, so that they can have that piece of our, I guess you can call it part of our culture, just something that's important to us. I guess it's can't live without food.
No. Right.
And it's food is, I think, a lot. It's a lot more powerful than we actually give it credit for. I think our society has definitely kind of downplayed the role of food in our lives and what it can and cannot do and what it does actually bring to our lives. I was reading an article the other day, and this may be way off subject or whatever, but it was talking about taste and how we taste things, and our body, the act of tasting new tastes actually builds new receptors in our brain. Like that alone, like that blew my mind. I was just like, what? Like, so if I taste something that I've never tasted before, like that's building new receptors in my brain. Like that's amazing.
Right.
And like that's a huge connection to food and my body.
Huge.
Like
that's your ability to learn and gather new information, right? And to like adjust and adapt to your environment, correct?
Right. So yeah, it's like hearing that, like just the simple act of tasting something can bring growth to your life and bring new things to your life. Like that is just, it's beautiful and kind of scary and dumbfounding all in the same way. Like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That relates a lot to, so we're learning biodynamics here on the farm.
Yes.
And biodynamics takes not only the idea of science and going down into the more microscopic levels of things, but also the broader spectrum of going into the greater realms of things. Essentially, like the word is spiritual science. So taking into account the spiritual or the unseen just as much as the seen. I think that's my rendition of the term biodynamics. That's like one of them. And so last night I was reading the agriculture course by Rudolf Steiner, where he talks about enlivening the soil and how the soil is a living entity just as much as a plant is a living entity, just as much as a human is. And so he talks about creating compost in a way, or treating your manure in a way that actually draws in these cosmic forces and makes the soil more capable, more coherent, like filled with life forces, life energy, so that when a seed is placed, the seed and the plant in the soil, they're actually one, because it's the unseen forces that are connected to the plant and the soil. Like it's all one. It meshes together. So when the plant starts growing and putting out its roots, it's what connects the roots and the soil is these unseen forces at a very small level, at an unseen level to the human eye.
Right.
But it's just this idea that everything is connected. It's all one. And so when we, and then that brings me to what you had just said previously about how if you taste something new, it's unlocking parts of your brain to become a cooler human being, that can do more, essentially.
Right.
But, so it's like, and I'm interested right now in this idea that there's this notion coming from biodynamics that we can actually create new, like completely, totally new plants, species, by working very closely with them throughout time. And that makes a lot of sense to me about how if you save your seeds and you recapitulate your seeds and work very closely with them, you're going to be constantly drawing in new forces from above and below, these cosmic forces, and over time, those forces are going to change. That plant is going to change. And if you consume that plant or work with that plant, your mind is also going to change, you know, based upon what you just said, you know. And I think that's the cool thing about what I'm learning right now through biodynamics, is that like science is finally matching with like the unseen, or like science and art, science and the spiritual are merging now. And there's just so many confluences between the two. And that just excites me. I don't know, because I think there is beauty in art, there's beauty in the unseen, there's beauty in like the unseen world, you know, that we all know as human beings, like I don't know, just communicating, right? Gathering around food, right? It creates a certain environment that like enlivens your heart.
Definitely. And I think,
right?
Yes. And I think food has the ability to transcend any difference that any person can come up with. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to speak the same languages. We may never have known each other before, but if you could put a plate of food in front of us, I guarantee you by the end of that meal, we're probably going to be talking to each other and or conversing in some way or shape or form, whether it's through grunts or smiles or nods or whatever. Like food can bring anybody together, any kind of person together to another person. Like I think food has that power of just equal. Like, unfortunately, I wish food was more equally obtained and be able to eaten, or, you know, but unfortunately it's not. But I feel like there's a power in being able to. I just think food transcends language differences, whether it's religious or non-religious or whatever it may be. Like food is its own language, and it can be shared with whoever.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious to know a little bit more about your experience with FARRMS this summer.
Yeah.
Like maybe how long, how many different farms you went to.
Sure.
And just how that experience was overall, maybe.
Yeah.
And then what the organization is too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So FARRMS is an organization whereas they procure government allotments and or grants and whatnot. And what they do is their mission is to educate individuals on agriculture and to shrink the gap and allow individuals like myself who've never grown up around farms and things like that and who are interested in getting involved in that, gives them an opportunity to do so without there being like a monetary hurdle or an educational hurdle or anything like that. Like I didn't know anything about farms other than what I've seen in TV and movies and a couple of, being on farms here and there, but like I really didn't know you don't know how they operate until you're actually there doing it. So what FARRMS does is they help individuals who are looking to get into that field or that field of farming interests them and connecting them with farmers who have the experience. And not only some of the farmers I worked with, some of them have been farming for 40 plus years. Others have been farming for maybe less than 10 years, maybe 5 years. So in that sense, you get connected with the individuals who have the knowledge in which you're seeking, and then it's tough to get help on farms, and so it's getting some help to those people when they need it, and and the farmer doesn't have to shoulder the burden of paying the labor costs. Like our government grants will pay for you to learn these things and whatnot. So that's kind of what FARRMS does is they close the gap between the people who want to learn about farming and the people who know how to farm. And then they set them up, and you get to pick, like, if you want to be more involved in, like, say, animal husbandry, and or more of the just growing crops and stuff like that. They'll try and pair you with the farmer that best meets your needs and whatnot. I signed up a little bit later in the year, so I had missed maybe the first 3 weeks, I think. And I had a unique opportunity. Most of the people that got involved in FARRMS was just paired with a single farm, and they worked with that farm the entire time, which is, I think, a awesome opportunity to get to know one place really well and whatnot. I got to go to multiple farms. So I went to a farm kind of down by the Gwinner area, Uncle Jesse's Produce.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
The family farm. It's been there for generations. And I went down there and I worked with him for a handful of days and kind of got to learn his operation. His was probably, I would say, his and your guys' operations were probably the biggest farms that I had worked at this summer. And that involved just showing up, picking things if they needed to be picked, weeding when it needed to be weeded, just cleaning up, doing whatever needed to be done in order to get the produce ready for market by the end of the week. So I went to Uncle Jesse's farm. I went to, I'm kind of drawing a blank on the farm names now, but I want to say there was about 5 farms that I visited this summer, and anywhere from just working there for a day to multiple days at a time, and just kind of learning how all the different types of operations and all the different types of farms there actually are out there, because they don't all do the same thing. And even if you are growing the same thing, you may not be doing it the same way, which was quite eye-opening and yeah, just really cool. Pretty amazing. Yeah. Like Uncle Jesse's, he's got hot houses, and they did it to where they dug down into the ground, so they're pulling heat out of the ground in the cooler months and then taking the heat out of the greenhouse by pushing it back into the ground, during the hot months, and just having thinking about that and then implementing that, and it's just so amazing and interesting, and all the little things that you can do to extend a season is pretty awesome. But I kind of digress there. Going back to farms, I got involved with farms because, like I said before, I noticed that I had the ability to cook food, but I did not have the ability or knowledge how to grow food. Yeah. And that was a major wake-up call for me. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I am completely and utterly dependent on this food system that my society has created to only benefit a few. Yeah. And it's not people like me and you, unfortunately. And so that was kind of scary. The whole COVID thing, when food, you didn't know, maybe where was, when supply lines got all messed up and things things were left in the air. It was really just whoa. Maybe I should learn a little bit more about this. And I'm definitely the type of personality that, I was actually kind of just having a conversation with my wife about this morning, where I'm the kind of person who, I'm not going to go to the store and buy Maseca masa flour. I'm the kind of person who's going to buy the dried corn and the lye and nixtamal it and grind it myself so that I can do it, so that I get more out of that, knowing that I have the skills to do that, than going to the store and buying something and whatnot. But yeah, farms. Yeah, back to farms. Sorry. FARRMS was it was so was such an amazing experience. I didn't know that I was yearning for a deeper sense of community, a deeper sense of connection to the food that I wanted, or food that I eat and consume, and then not only that, but the world that surrounds me. I can't, like, when I would go to a farm and work, that's like the most peaceful I've ever been in this in my life. Like I got so, like, there's just, I don't know, I would just show up to a farm and everybody would be so happy to see you, and like positive vibes, and everybody's just there to work together and create this amazing, beautiful thing. And then not only that, but like share it with the world. And I felt at home.
Yeah.
I really felt at home for the first time in a long time, or I just got that feeling where I was like, oh, like maybe this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Maybe less of the end product, and maybe more towards the creating and at the beginning of that life cycle of food. And farms definitely gave me an amazing, like I said, I was able to see a bunch of different operations, to see like, okay, this is how this kind of farm works, and this is what they do, and this is the work that entails with that. And then I would go to a different farm and see that as well. And so that I would be like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not really into grain production and stuff like that. Like that's not really me. Kudos to the farmers that do that. We need that. It's great, but like, not so much for me. Like I like more like the vegetables and more human, consumption products and whatnot. And then even leaning more towards animal husbandry. I did not get a chance to really dive into that this last summer. That's kind of my only regret. I would have liked to be more involved in some more animal husbandry and that kind of stuff. That really interests me. Like taking care of another living, breathing entity, and yeah. It's pretty crazy, pretty cool, pretty magical. Not to say that I mean, plants are living and breathing too, yeah. No different than a cow, but yeah, farms allowed me to experience farm life and work on, I hate to say it, but like on somebody else's dollar, but in a good way. Like this is what, like, this is where tax money should be going to, is things like this, yeah. so that we can have a better understanding, and working on farms, like, it definitely has me thinking more about food waste, and not only that, but what I do consume, like what am I putting in my body. And so, yeah, it was a really unique opportunity. I really enjoyed it. I also was able to work with the Red River Co-op, which was something I've always admired co-ops, and I wish there were more of them. It was nice to kind of see how they operate. I had no idea at all, and I still don't really know a lot, but it was just really interesting to see that. And then not only that, but to be involved in, being involved in something like that in my community made me feel even better, because I want to bring more of these things in our community. And the way that's going to happen is if people volunteer their time in order for them to kind of get off to a good start. And then maybe we can bring it to a larger audience.
Yeah, make it more abundant in the community. Yeah.
So yeah, FARRMS was awesome. I really appreciated that. I hope to, I don't know if I will re-enlist in FARRMS or anything like that, but I definitely will put myself out there for other things. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't looked at the internship with Prairie Rose Farm here, because that's something that definitely piqued my interest. Just kind of trying to figure out what that would look like with my my other job and all that kind of jazz. So
Yeah.
so but yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to hear about that.
Oh.
More about that. And you were out at Prairie Rose Farm this summer, and we cleaned out the cow barn.
Yep.
And did we stack all new hay?
Yep.
Or
Yep.
straw bales in there? That's
Yep.
what we did, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, from my experience, it was, and we've had other people come out too, like the Farm Buds, the group out of the Twin Cities.
Okay.
And they do, I mean, it's kind of similar in a sense to FARRMS, where they gather a group of volunteers or people that want to come out and experience farm life, to go out to a farm for a day or two, and just volunteer their time and help out on the farm. Super cool organization. We'll talk more about them. But yeah, so my experience was that I heard Paul Perez was going to come out. He is FARRMS intern. And yeah, and it was like looking around the farm, well, what can we have help with? And that's kind of fun to start with, because you're like, okay, well, you're going to get help. And like everything on the farm, if you're running a larger operation or producing more food than for yourself to consume, having more hands makes all the better. It just does. So yeah, you get to look around the farm and be like, okay, what are we going to accomplish today with like super speed, because it's like we had a little bit less help than anticipated on the farm this year. So to have help come in, it's like you're playing a video game or like Super Mario, and you get like the power up and you just like fly, it's like that's the feeling of that.
Nice.
Of having you here. It was like hitting a power up and it's just like poof.
No.
And that's what that day was. So yeah, you came out and we cleaned out the cow barn, and we stacked a whole bunch of straw in there. And yeah, it was just super fun. It went so fast. You're just having a conversation, we're working, and before you know it, we're done.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you have time, and it was like good work too. It was, we were in there and packing, cleaning, all that stuff. But also we had, I think, at least like an hour-long conversation out at the farm too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was time to relax and
yeah, just like we're doing now, and I don't know, but that's a big part that I enjoy about farming too, is being able to just be out there, in nature, in sunshine, enjoying like the bounty of life that is nature. I don't know, the sunshine, the hard work, everything that comes along with it. So yeah, my experience of you coming out for FARRMS was an incredible one, and yeah, I think that FARRMS is a wonderful thing from what you've described, to allow people to get out and experience not only nature but agriculture, which yes, for myself was really this kind of like vague, mysterious thing that I just never really knew about what it was, where it came from, and I think humanity's trajectory at this point is going back to our roots again. So I don't know. Keep going, FARRMS.
Yes.
And
Yes.
All the other organizations that allow folks to reconnect with nature themselves, agriculture, food, all that stuff. So
No. Yeah, really, you just
Yeah.
have to you have to give your a little bit of your time. Really, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a lot cheaper than trying to be like, oh, I'm going to be a farmer. So now I'm giving my time and all my resources and all this to try and learn this thing where, we didn't all just all of a sudden start walking magically. Like we had to learn how to crawl, and then we fell a bunch, and then we were able to start walking, So like FARRMS is that like, that parent that kind of holds their finger out for their infant to kind of steady themselves and then they'll slowly take the finger away, and then
Yeah.
we can stand on our own.
Completely. Yeah, man. Yeah. It's exactly what I've been envisioning is that, yeah, there's this parenting, this nurturing that is taking place for folks like you and I.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I can't speak for anybody else, but I know for myself, like being a child of the being born in the 80s, really growing up in the 90s, I felt like there was kind of like rural life was kind of a joke. It was wasn't really trendy to live that rural life. And I feel like for a long time there, and maybe I'm just making this up, but my perception was that like farming was kind of not really looked into in a positive thing. Like that wasn't really something that you encouraged people to go and do. Like, oh, you should go be my parents were never like, oh, you should grow up to be a farmer. Or like, you should grow up to be a doctor. You should grow up to be a lawyer. You know what I mean? Like our culture just somewhere down the line decided that this way of life wasn't as important or didn't deserve to be highlighted as other lives did. And I grew up in the city. I didn't grow up in a rural area or anything like that too, which obviously affected the way I thought about rural areas and whatnot. But yeah. And then not only that, but on my dad's side, they're Mexican immigrants to this country. So when they first came here, they were migrant workers. They worked the fields. Mm-hmm. And so like growing up, I saw farming in a different light than I think what maybe some other people saw it as. I saw it as, oh, this is where my family members sweated and toiled for years and years and years, you know, and they didn't own anything. They didn't own the farm. They just worked the farm. And yes, they were taken care of, but they moved a lot when they first got to this country. It was Iowa, it was Wisconsin, it was North Dakota, it was wherever the work was, you know. And I don't know if it was kind of that them coming, like being migrant workers, like they always wanted us to like, it was always like, go to college, go get a professional job. Like wasn't to do like labor jobs and things like that. That's what I always found myself kind of gravitating towards my whole life anyway. If it wasn't some sort of like ground maintenance for turf or anything like that, then it was going to be, I did construction. Like I was always doing something outside and with the earth. Mm-hmm. Granted, construction isn't necessarily creating.
It's outside though.
Right.
It's the elements.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's what really spoke to me, and I think being able to be a part of farms and getting back outside really reignited that love and that passion of nature and kind of where I think I was supposed to be, because I spent the last 20 years in a kitchen, and most kitchens don't have windows. Mm-hmm. And I worked nights, so I usually slept through the days. So it was just like this weird, I don't know, like just stay in your little dungeon room and you can only come out at night kind of thing. And so it's just like, for the longest time, that was just my life. You know, it was just, you go to work, you do this, you do that, and then you just get up and you do it all over again. And I don't know, like COVID I think was like that, I mean, bittersweet. There was negative things to COVID, but I think there were a lot of positive things to COVID too. I took that break, that pause. It was like a wake-up call, like a slap in the face, like, holy smokes, man, like you can function on this earth and not be going 90 miles an hour all the time. Yeah. You don't have to be working 60 hours a week, Paul. Like you can take vacations. Like you can start living your life to what you value instead of what your society tells you should value. It was just like it was just like a nice, it was like enough break in the whole like robotics of just like living life and doing things. It was enough for me to like stop and think about how and why we were doing things and re-examine that and be like, oh, I'm going to change that. I don't have to do it like that anymore. And I still struggle with it, definitely. I mean, the societal indoctrination is, I have my days where I'm at home. And in the winter, I mow lawns in the summer. In the winter, I don't do a whole lot. I have a lot of time on my hands. Lately, I've been struggling with this sense of, Paul, you need to do something. You need to produce something. Like, you need to earn money or bring money into the house. Like, you can't just sit around and like read books all day and just like clean the house. Like, what are you doing? And my wife, God, she's amazing. She's like, no, that's exactly what you need to be doing. Yeah. You know, like we both came to this conclusion that like we are not, our value does not come from what we do. It does not come from what we produce. It does not come from what we consume. Like, we all inherently have value. We're already valuable.
Right.
And so I'm really trying to really live by that new realization. And some days I succeed, and other days I just feel like I'm this lump that should be doing more. Mm-hmm. And then I feel bad.
Yeah.
But yeah. But then that's when meditation and mindfulness and self-love and all those things hopefully kick in and help me realize that, no, you're doing just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Tools.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Paul Perez is valuable.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We are all valuable.
We are all valuable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think for the longest time our society has told us that we aren't, you know. Like what our society is at, like, looks at us and says, what can you provide for me? If you can't provide what I need, then you're not valuable anymore. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah.
Yes. That is a challenge. It's a challenge for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was definitely one of those people that prided themselves on, you know, look at me, I'm working 60 hours a week, I'm super stressed out, and I hate my job in my life, but I'm doing it, you know, like I'm the sous chef, I have this title, and I'm making this much money, and I'm working at this restaurant, and I'm, you know, doing this and that, and I don't know, I started to, COVID allowed me to take that, to I don't know, shake it all up. And changed every way, just the way I look at the world and life and everything. And so now I'm trying to implement those changes slowly but surely.
Right on. Yes.
And sometimes I'm really good, and sometimes I'm not. But I have to always remember, like, progress isn't a straight line, and sometimes you'll go forward 5 steps, and then you'll go back 10 steps, but eventually you'll go forward again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just be kind. Just be kind to yourself. That's what I keep telling myself. And everybody. Just be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, kindness is powerful.
It is.
Very powerful.
It is.
Yeah, especially when you're going through stages or phases of self-renewal and changing something that was once very hard. In terms of maybe being hard on yourself. Mm-hmm. I think that's where kindness can be very powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I know that I still struggle with giving myself kindness, because for so long I denied myself that because I didn't think I deserved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard, cold, cruel world we've been inserted into, and exposed to.
Yeah. It truly is.
Like you said, you were in the chef's dungeon.
Yeah.
You know, just day after day after day for so long.
Yeah. And it was like I would be at work at 10 in the morning, and then, I mean, service didn't end until 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then you would clean up afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
12, 14-hour days, 5-6 days a week. Like that's burnout central.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what happened to me. Like I crumbled under it, under all that stress, under all that pressure. It got to a point where what I was doing was no longer enjoyable. It was pain. It was suffering. So I had to take a step back. And so I got out of the cooking industry for a few. I've been out of it for a few years now, and have been trying to insert myself kind of into the whole farms part of it. And like that's where I think I want to go now. I want to take that to there. I still have the skills that I obtained throughout years of cooking, which I can do stuff with. But
Mm-hmm.
but I really just want to. I really think it's important to have the knowledge, and I to have the knowledge and the know-how to properly take care of myself and others, because this isn't just about me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I can benefit from this greatly, yes, but really it's all about spreading that love with the world and showing that like here we go. I just wanna I want to help grow stronger community ties in my community, and to bridge the gaps that have been developed over generations between farmers and grocery stores and consumers and just everybody, like every aspect of it, even the people that make the packages for the food to go into,
Right.
I feel like if we weren't so in our own little boxes and worrying about just what we were doing, I think it would just be a better system altogether. Maybe the packaging that we would have would make more sense, and we would have less packaging, or maybe the packaging we did have wouldn't be as much plastic. Maybe it would be more natural, things like that, where why can't we? I thought about that, where when I worked at Birnbaum's, we were able to get these plates. They're like these wooden plates or whatever, and they were made from palm leaves. So they're biodegradable, all that kind of stuff. Really cool. We have so much, and I know that it goes to other things, but we produce so much corn in this country. Like, what are we doing with all the with all the corn husks?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing with them?
Something.
Right?
I don't know.
Like, can't we like, maybe we can make some packaging out of it or something, like,
Right.
or whatever. Like, I know what I do with corn husks. I make tamales, and I wrap tamales with corn husks. Like, that's one thing you can use that for. But yeah, I saw that there was a division, big gaps between who's producing our food, who's manufacturing our food, who's cooking our food, and who's eating our food. Like, there's no connection at all. And I, being the kind of person I am, like, I saw that as an issue, and I guess my brain went to, how can I help solve this issue? And really, the only answer was just to get involved and to put myself in the mix of things and see where I can fit in, or what part of that speaks to me, and what I can do to help out.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah, it's taking that courageous step.
It was scary, to be honest with you. I definitely struggle with social anxiety and stuff like that. But there was just, I think, the desire to learn more and to learn something new just overrode that fear of not putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Because it can be super scary.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So now, have you guys started thinking about next spring and what you're going to plant and where it's going to go and all that jazz?
Yes. So as I like to call my mentor, Verna Cragness and Rick Hall, the folks who have started up Prairie Rose Farm and Folk School, and who are also involved in New Roots and a plethora of other beautiful projects. Um, I'm, I'm not sure. I'm imagining that she's got all of these beautiful creative things going on in her mind about what exactly is going to be planted where, what the season is going to look like. Um, she takes care of a lot of the details, as I'm a beginner farmer, so I'm learning and educating myself here. So I don't know all the details about that right now.
Yeah.
But we've got all the seeds here, and so one of the projects this winter is just going to be sorting, counting the seeds that we do have, taking inventory of all of the seeds. But yeah, I've got imaginations about what we're going to be planting, what's going to be going on here. So that, yeah, the details I think are yet to come, but yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I'll know one of these days here.
I know.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, I think that's what I've struggled with too, or personally myself, like with a home garden, is like, when do you start it, and like, what should I start, and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes I look at the macro of things, and then I get overwhelmed, and then I don't know where to start, instead of just being like, I'm just gonna start right there, and then we'll figure it out from there, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Nice.
Yeah, definitely. Are you making anything right now? Foodstuffs for yourself, creative? I know last time we talked, you were going to be making a certain, I mean, it was tamales, right?
Yes.
Are you making tamales right now?
I am. I have started buying so there is a lovely purveyor of Mexican dried corn called Hacienda. I don't know if you're familiar with it. They are an online presence, and Javier, I'm not going to say his last name correctly. Anyway, this gentleman took it upon himself to create a connection with small plot Mexican farms in Mexico, who are still, these farmers are still farming the way indigenous people have farmed for thousands of years. So the Three Sisters method, where you're planting corn, squash, and beans on the same plot. They benefit each other. They grow together.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so not only is he seeking out smaller plot farms, these farms specialize in land race varietals. So these are, for better or worse, the OG corn of the world. It's a belief that that's kind of where corn originated, was down around the Oaxaca, Mexico area.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say land race, that means like the original breed of corn. It hasn't been genetically modified or anything like that. This is the same old corn that's been grown year after year, decade after decade, since forever. Natural selection. We were kind of talking earlier about how you plant a seed and you watch it grow, and then, I mean, farmers used to do that, and then they'd go and they'd keep the good seeds for themselves to plant next year, and then, you know, that's how you would get a better varietal. Or you see a stock, like, oh, that stock's a little bit looks a little healthier, a little different, so like I'm gonna save these seeds this year for next year, kind of a thing. Anyway, so this gentleman has created a business by supplying us Americans now with landrace varietals of Mexican corn. I had bought a 55 kilogram bag of Otilio white corn from Oaxaca, Mexico, and I have been making nixtamal, which is when you take that dried corn and you boil it in a mixture of lye and water. And what that does is that allows and softens the pericap of the corn. It's like that hard outer skin.
Yeah.
It's gonna soften that. It's gonna be able to take that off, so then that we can actually get to the nutrients inside the corn.
Right.
Beautiful way of obtaining nutrients from something that, you know, I mean, we don't do that anymore here in the U.S. Like the corn that we consume really has little to no nutritional value because we don't nixtamal it. We don't turn it into nixtamal. Anyway, so I've been doing that. I grew up, being half Mexican, I grew up on the holidays making tamales with my grandparents on my dad's side, to the point, I mean, like we would have a pig that was split on the table, and my grandma would be cooking off pieces of that while the kids were peeling garlic, and we were cleaning the corn husks, and, you know, like the whole process, grinding the corn ourselves. And I wanted to learn that process from the traditional ways of doing it, instead of just like going to the store and buying a bag of corn flour or masa.
Yeah.
It's been awesome and frustrating at the same time. Frustrating because I'm a perfectionist, and I'm definitely someone who's very hard on themselves. But fun because I'm doing something that I've never done before, and some days it actually works out, and it's exactly what I want it to be, and other days it's not. But yes, I have been procuring dried corn and nixtamaling it to make things like tamales. I just made some tortillas last weekend. I've done tlacoyos. So basically a tlacoyo is like you'd make it like, you'd flatten out like you would like a corn tortilla, and then I filled it with just like a bean puree. Then you fold the sides kind of into each other in half, and then you fold the ends almost like to make like a flattened football shape.
Mm-hmm.
And you can either dry griddle it or pan fry it. But I decided that I wanted to learn how to make nixtamal, and then not only make nixtamal, but what things can I make from the nixtamal. And so that's been going pretty good. I purchased a molenito from the same company, Macienda. It is a countertop wet grinder. So that uses lava stones, which is really cool, instead of metal on metal. A lot of grinders are just metal on metal. So these are hand carved grinding wheels from lava rock.
Wow.
Which is really neat.
Yeah.
So I have been learning how to use that machine and how to grind corn, not only for tamales, but for tortillas, and not just for like table tortillas, because I've been learning there are table tortillas, and then there are tortillas for frying. And if you want to make like a table tortilla, you want to get your grind to the point to where, like, if you rub the masa between your fingers, you're not going to feel any grit. Like, you're not going to feel any particles or anything like that.
It's really soft.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's going to allow for a softer tortilla, and not only that, but it's going to allow for more moisture in the masa, which then it makes the table tortilla thinner, softer, and allows it to puff, which then cooks it through. So you're not kind of getting that, like, sometimes when you make a tortilla and it doesn't puff, you're going to get the two sides that are cooked, but like in the middle there might be just a little bit of chewiness, the masa. But anyway, so yeah, it's been going pretty good. I started it under the premise that I needed to have another source of income in the winter, that I could help, subsidize my life. And so at first I got into it thinking I'm going to learn this, I'm going to create these products, and I'm going to sell these products, and I'm going to be in this is going to be this business. By doing that, I turned something that could have been fun and really cool into something that was not so fun and super stressful.
Right.
So like the indoctrination of capitalism in my society decided to like inject itself in my art and creativity and be like, no, you can't have fun. Like you can't do that.
Right.
Like you have to make money. You have to do this. It's production. And I was just freaking out, and I kind of had a mental breakdown. And my wife, she's awesome. She's like, Paul, like, I don't give a shit if you ever create anything to sell. Like, this is for you. And that's it. Like, don't stop. Just stop putting so much pressure on producing something, being, like putting value into yourself by what you do. And so this last week, I was just like, you know what? F it. I'm not selling tortillas. I'm not selling tamales. Like, I'm just making masa. And for like the first time since I started, I had an amazing day. Like, I turned on some music, and I spent 6 hours in the kitchen grinding corn and making tortillas and singing to myself and just like living in the moment. And it was peace and contentment that I hadn't felt in such a long time.
Yeah.
And it was, and then the beautiful thing was like, oh man, like I have control over that. Like that peace and that contentment, like that's me. Like I'm the one who can, I cause my own suffering.
Yes.
And so if I cause my own suffering, then that means I can cause my own happiness and contentment.
Yeah.
So it's just like hitting that wall and then just feeling that, just like, ugh, was just like, it was tough. But then I learned, holy smokes, no, it doesn't have to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
I can make it whatever I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we all can. We all have that ability. It's there within each and every one of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been super fun learning how to make nixtamal. My next goal in that whole thing is to not use lye, but to use wood ash like they did prior to using lye.
And is the lye or the wood ash a way of getting that, breaking off that?
So what it does, it'll increase
that hard layer.
Yep, it increases the pH level of the water.
Okay.
Which then allows for that to be stripped off.
Okay.
But then it's not only being able to strip off the outer side, it's being able to know, like the thing that I had trouble with was, okay, I got it to the point where the skin comes off, but now it still has to cook a little bit more to soften the kernel up just enough so that it can grind well, but not too much where you overcook it and then it's mushy, and gummy. And so it's like finding that like perfect happy medium, which is I've found, I feel like I'm just starting to hit it off, and it's taking me at least 20 pounds of dried corn to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it goes, man. That's how it goes.
Right.
I had hominy corn.
Yes.
Ojibwe hominy flint corn. I got it when I was in Duluth at what is the name? There's a beautiful indigenous Native American store that just opened up in Duluth.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
That's where I got it. And
Nice.
I made hominy last winter, and it was the most wonderful corn I'd ever had in my life. It's just like these big, puffy, round
Yes.
bits of corn.
Yes.
So when you grind it, before you grind it, do you dry that corn a little bit? I know
So,
you said you had a wet grinder, so I imagine you can just.
yep.
I have no idea how those things work.
Yep. From what I understand, we do a lot of dry grinding here up in the United States. It's not a lot of wet grinding. In other places in the world and stuff like that, they grind wetter things. There is like you talk about the hominy. There's a specific breed of corn, varietal of corn, that works really well for that. In Mexico, it's the pozolero varietal of corn, and they call it that because they use it in pozole, which is a soup that has the hominy in it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, hominy is nixtamal before you grind it.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the only difference between masa and hominy. But yeah, you can. So like in northern Mexico, they have a type of tamale masa flour that they use, but it's usually found dry. So what they'll do is they'll nixtamal the corn, then they'll dry it in the sun or in ovens, and then they'll grind it dry so that it'll last longer on a shelf.
Yep. Gotcha.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Otherwise, masa's maybe good for a day or two in the fridge, and then it starts to ferment.
Yeah. Okay.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because
Right.
there are fermentation's great.
Great.
It's good for our gut. You know what I mean? Like I've even read articles about that. Like when you say you cook rice and then you have rice in your fridge for like 4 days, that rice starts to ferment, and it's even a little bit healthier, or maybe on the 4th day than it was on that first day.
Yeah.
But that being said, like if it's just going to sit on a counter, you might get 4 hours, 5 hours before it starts that fermenting process. But there are places in Mexico that they use fermented masa specifically for some things, which is really cool. But I mean, like, I think there's like, what did they say? In Mexico, there's like hundreds of varietals of corn.
Yeah. I watched a documentary last winter, and we're gonna watch it again this winter with a group. And yeah, they were talking about it was about Monsanto and just monocultured corn, and how corn came from Mexico and this and that and the other. And yeah, in one part of it, they were talking about just like the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of varieties of corn and how beautiful it is.
Yeah, it's all sorts of different shapes and sizes and colors, and
Yeah.
pretty cool, pretty amazing. But that got me thinking, because as much as I love obtaining dried corn from Hacienda and getting it from Mexico, like I'd love to get corn from a local farmer instead.
Mm-hmm.
And do that with that, you know. I've thought about what steps can I take to maybe see if I couldn't get a small plot somewhere, or convince a farmer to grow a little bit for me or something as a trial run to kind of see how it would go, or whatnot. And even doing it in my own backyard, to be honest with you.
Yeah, completely.
Because yeah, it's man, like I said, amazing product, beautiful product, great place to work with, but shipping, man,
Yeah.
it's expensive. It's what kills you.
Yeah, that's another part of the whole food thing too, is, we're just growing things on the other side of the so far away, shipping them so far,
Yep.
It's like, how do we kind of make that thing a little bit more efficient? But
Definitely.
yeah, shipping, huh? Yeah,
Yep.
It's a lot to ship
Yeah.
in terms of cost.
Yeah. Because usually I try to buy the corn wholesale. So at that point, then you're the smallest bag you can buy is a 55 kilogram bag of corn, which that's fine. But for someone who's just doing it for himself, like I've got a I've got a 24 quart Cambro container in my closet full of corn that I'm, doing my stuff with. But yeah, it's
So we got to get more people with more wet grinders and knowledge on how to do this, so that one person can buy wholesale and then we can distribute.
yes,
More people can make good things.
yes, heck yeah,
Or start growing here too.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Heck yeah.
Or do both.
For sure. Well, and I mean, like, let's not pretend we don't. I mean, look around. There's corn everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. yeah. It's everywhere.
So yeah, it'll be. I hope I can connect with someone, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll do it my own, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just kind of that, like, thinking about ways in which we can bring the production of our food closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
That's key, I think. Is the food we eat here should be grown within 50 miles of where we live. It really should. And we would all be better off for it. Not only nutritionally, but I think economically, everything.
100% agree. Absolutely. It's no doubt. There's not an inkling of doubt in my mind that those notions are true.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when I get scared sometimes when I actually look at the big picture and see how much of our food production is not controlled by the people, and it's only controlled by a few. Like, it really is, like, it can be taken away at any point in time. I mean, it does get manipulated and taken away from us, but yeah, that's kind of I'd like to see more. I would love to see more community gardens in our communities. Like, why can't that be a part of our educational system in which we start kids off? I mean, my nieces and nephews, when they were small, tiny, like 6 years old, 7 years old, they loved being outside. They loved farting around and doing stuff. Like, get them exposed to it when they're young like that. Get them playing in dirt and all that kind of jazz. And if we have a connection to that and a knowledge, then we've got that. We're starting to take some power back that we've lost.
Yeah.
And we've lost it not only willingly, we've willingly given it up for an easier way of life, but also it's been taken from us too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the double whammy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that, yeah, I this last year I had a big wake up call about where I was and what I knew and how I guess I always prided myself on being able to, like, take care of myself and provide for myself. When I really looked at it, like, I didn't. I can't grow my own food, so I can't really take care of myself. I can't really provide for myself. Yeah. And I don't have to grow it all, but it would be nice to be able to know how to grow some of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I heard something somewhere related to all of this, that not everybody needs to be a farmer, but we all need to know a farmer. It was like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, we have painters, we have sculptors, we have artists, we have farmers, we have construction workers. It's like, we've all got a part, but we should all know each other, right?
Yep.
For this very instance of our connection to food, we've willingly let go of it, but yes, it also has been taken. So for this instance, getting to know each other, know a farmer at least, so that if something does happen, we can work it out.
Yep.
As opposed to being left in the dust, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and if we create new bonds with new people, and then we can build our communities, and that's how we take care of each other, right? Like, you and I wouldn't have to spend an entire day in a garden if there was 10 of us volunteering our time as opposed to just 2.
Correct.
So if we all put a little effort into producing something, then we don't all have to be there all the time doing it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. Community gardens, man. That's where it's at.
Cool. Perfect, man. Well, I feel like this might be a good place to wrap up.
Right on.
I don't know how long it's been. I know we allotted about an hour, but
Yeah.
maybe it's been about then.
Cool.
But this has been a wonderful introduction. Start all this off. Just, I don't know, good to be here. Good to have conversation.
Yes. No, I appreciate you thinking of me and inviting me here and allowing me to, come here and be a part of your space and, connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. So, any final words or thoughts? I guess. We're here in the airwaves of the day and age of the internet, and you can say anything you want to say.
You have value, and you are loved. Just remember that. Yeah. Show yourself kindness. It goes a long ways.
We're at the dawn of a new era. Here we are at Prairie Rose Farm in Fargo, Moorhead. And this is the podcast. I don't even know what the name of the podcast is yet. We're still working that out. But here we are. Thank you for tuning in. And we will see you on the next podcast. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Onwards and upwards.